Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of Everything Kratom, the podcast about anything and everything Kratom. Great to have you with us here on this Monday morning. Hope all is going great with you. I am doing fantastic. I took green mangda this morning and what was the other one? White Sumatran. Great combination. I probably did about 1 gram to 1.5 grams of each, maybe closer to 1 gram of each. So it wasn't that much. Let's call it 2.25 grams in total of kratom, and it's like the perfect amount for me. So like I am on point, excited, ready to go. Let's do this. So what more can I ask for? Today, this is a video episode, by the way. And for those of you who are listening in, this is a video. So if you go on Spotify, you can have the unpleasant experience of having to look at my ugliness for just a minute here. The reason why I'm doing a video episode today is not to show you this, but it's actually to share my screen, because what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at a tweet that Kratom Science actually pointed out last week, and then we're going to dig in a bit and basically prove these people ridiculously wrong. And on top of that, we're going to use the National Institute on Drug Abuse as our source to prove them wrong. Just, to have fun. So let's do this. So here we go. I'm going to share my screen. And for those of you who are listening in, I am going to be narrating what's going on, so you don't have to watch the video, but I thought it'd be fun to do a video today. So here we go. So this is the tweet that Kratom Science referenced, and I'll show you Kratom Science's comments after we take a look at this. But here's basically what we're looking at. So this tweet is from the Pennsylvania House Democratic Policy Committee, right? And so they put out this tweet. They're having this round table around opioids and treatment options, May 2nd. And in this tweet, they say, Kratom is widely available, but suppresses breathing much the same way as heroin. Okay, so no. And Kratom Science points this out rightly on their website. Of course, I'll link everything that we're doing today in the description of this podcast. They say that this is ridiculous, and Kratom Science goes on to source 5 sources here showing that that's not the case. There's a little infographic here, and then a quote from Dr. Lance McMahon, who served as chair of the Department of Pharmacodynamics, University of Florida. So, I wanted to spend time on this because, first off, why would you tweet something like this with no source whatsoever? No sources. Look at this. Kratom is widely available, but suppresses breathing much the same way as heroin. No sources whatsoever. No context. Someone just probably said it in the conference, and they're like, "Ooh, let's tweet this." Okay, where is the proof? And I want to try and prove them right? Like, if there's a potential danger, I'm not sitting here saying, "Woo, go Kratom." Like, if it's going to suppress people's breathing, I want this stuff, not like seen as, oh, la-di-da, there's nothing wrong with Kratom, right? Like, I have no agenda here, but every single thing that I can find shows that that's not true. So it's like, that's not the case. And why would you tweet something like that? I mean, really, it's actually beyond me. Like, what would make you tweet something like that when you have sway? You're the House Democratic Policy Committee of Pennsylvania, so it's not like you're just some rando person. Like, you're an actual representation of our democracy, and you aren't citing science when you're saying this. So, okay. So then I was like, you know what? I really, really, really want to dig into this. Let's go to the sources that would be the ones to say that respiratory depression is an issue. And the best thing I could think of was going to NIDA, or National Institute on Drug Abuse. So here we go. We go to NIDA. We go to their Kratom page. It talks about Kratom. Then it says, here we go. While there are no uses for Kratom approved by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, people report using Kratom to manage drug withdrawal symptoms and cravings, especially related to opioid use, pain, fatigue, and mental health problems. NIDA supports and conducts research to evaluate potential medical uses for Kratom and related chemical compounds. Okay, let me just stop it there and just say, if Kratom showed respiratory depressant effects to the same degree as heroin, do you think NIDA would be conducting research on Kratom to see what kind of therapeutic effects it would have? Like, are they doing that with heroin right now? But second off, anyway, I'll keep moving on. The NIDA also supports research towards better understanding the health and safety effects of Kratom use. Rare but serious effects have been reported in people who use Kratom, including psychiatric, cardiovascular, gastrointestinal, and respiratory problems. Okay, so here's what they say. It goes on to say, compared to the deaths from other drugs, a very small number of deaths have been linked to Kratom products, and nearly all cases involve other drugs or contaminants. So of course they say that after, but let's stick with this. Okay, so they say, NIDA says that rare but serious side effects include respiratory problems, right? So let's go to their sources. One of the two sources that they say is the reason why they can say there are respiratory depressant effects is the World Health Organization Commission on Narcotic Drugs. Their finding of the Expert Committee on Drug Dependence that happened in October, and we've all taken a look at that. For those of you who are keyed into the Kratom community at all, you probably have seen this document before. But, essentially it is this review of Kratom. It says there's a bit of possibility of abuse. It says respiratory depressant effects are possible. But then it goes on to say that there is potential for therapeutic usefulness. And the recommendation is that while there might be some limited withdrawal symptoms that are possible if you use Kratom regularly, it really isn't worth their time. Insufficient evidence to recommend a critical review of Kratom. Okay, if this was really if respiratory depression was of the utmost, the most reported effect of Kratom, and it was happening all over the place, do you think that the World Health Organization would not critically review it? I mean, that's one thing. But let's look at their other source. So one of the two sources is basically saying Kratom isn't worth the time of the World Health Organization. Okay, that's one. Here's the second. So the second source that they say is the reason why they can say that Kratom causes respiratory depression is this one: the adverse cardiovascular effects and cardiotoxicity of Kratom, a comprehensive review. Let's check it out. So here we go. Got a bit of background, methods used in this study. An electronic search was conducted to identify all research articles published in English from 1950 to 2021 using the major research databases like Google Scholar, Web of Science, PubMed, blah, 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 etc., etc. Okay, so listen to this. So their findings basically show that a bunch of things about the heart, okay? And I don't understand a lot of these. They're saying that Kratom consumption can be associated with a lot of different things that have to do with your heart, like ventricular arrhythmia, cardiopulmonary arrest. But then it says this association could have ensued when Kratom was co-administered with another substance. So I know this isn't about respiratory depressant effects, but just to pause there, am I just one of the only people who are seeing how weird this is? If you can't even say for certain that Kratom caused these issues with people's hearts, because you can't rule out the fact that there might have been other things, other substances that caused this. Like, shouldn't that be telling? Like, shouldn't you be able to just pull out a bunch of cases where kratom's the only thing someone had and these things resulted? If you can't do that and you're like, well, it seems to be that in pretty much all these, there's another substance or more. Like, what are you doing? Why are you trying to make this argument? Okay, then it says, similarly, analysis from the national poison data show kratom's most common adverse acute cardiovascular effects include all of these things that I can't pronounce, but they all have to do with the heart. And then after this huge long list of all of these things, and it includes respiratory depression somewheres in here, although now I can't even find it because of all the heart terms, it says, conclusion. Although kratom use has been associated with death and cardiotoxicity, especially at higher doses and when associated with other psychoactive drugs, the dearth of data and methodological limitations reported in existing studies do not allow a definitive conclusion, and further studies are still necessary to address this issue. Okay, NIDA, the two things that NIDA cites for respiratory depression, and NIDA out of any organization would be the one to be highlighting this, right? The two best sources they could come up with was the World Health Organization Committee on Drug Dependence saying that this isn't worth their time, and this study, which says in two different places, basically, you can't say that kratom is responsible for these things because it's primarily when they're at higher doses and and associated with other psychoactive drugs, and there's a dearth of data and they can't even come up with a real conclusion on it. Those are the only two sources at NIDA for respiratory depression. Now, I am not saying that respiratory depression doesn't happen, and on the contrary, I've had a few episodes in the past where I mentioned, from what I can tell, there's a potential for a small amount of respiratory depression, but you have to isolate the alkaloids and increase them tenfold. And even so, there seems to be a ceiling on how much of a respiratory depressant effect it can have, and more research is needed. So that's my takeaway. There needs to be more research. We definitely shouldn't rule out that respiratory depression, can happen with kratom. Like, don't rule it out. It's very possible. It would make sense that there'd be a little bit, but nowhere in any studies has it been found so far that kratom alone, is causing significant respiratory depression. Right? That's as simple as it gets. If you can't find one study that's saying all of these people only took kratom, nothing else, and it caused them to not be able to breathe well, what are we even doing? Like, that's all I got here. I mean, end of episode, like, end of story. Like, what the heck else is there, So it's just so confusing. Going into the research component again, too, I looked into NIDA a bit more with kratom. They say, how is NIDA advancing research on kratom? And it says that, research on kratom is pretty new compared to research on more widely used drugs. NIDA is supporting research on kratom's use, effects, mechanisms, and therapeutic potential. If this stuff was obviously as bad as heroin, you think they would be doing this at all? There's just so many conflicting things going on here that I honestly, I don't get. So anyway, I thought that was interesting. It was a little wormhole I went down this morning, and I don't know. Sometimes it cracks me up at how there's such a lack of foundation for these claims, and it's not even like I'm rooting for them. I'm like, please try and find something wrong with this thing, because I want to be certain that there's nothing wrong with it. So if you can find something wrong with it, let me know, right? But every time they'd make these claims, it's like they've got nothing. Like, there's nothing there that's actually backing it up. And it always says, if there's any potential for this bad side effect or that bad side effect, other substances cannot be ruled out. I'm just starting to think about what that statement actually means, because it pops up everywhere. You must have seen it, I'm assuming, if you look into this stuff. If you cannot rule out other substances, like how is it that out of all these studies that you do, cite, you can't find enough cases where kratom is the only thing in this person's body that you can't make the argument that it's the only thing responsible for the bad thing that happened to this person. Like, how is it that you can't scrounge up 10 cases? If you can't scrounge up 10 cases showing kratom to be the only thing that caused these things, and it's known that the substances that the people take with kratom are also responsible for effects that are like respiratory depression, etc. Anyway. So that's what I'm doing this Monday morning to get myself fired up. What about you? Anyway, thanks for tagging along with me on this little wormhole ride down into NIDA's website. Let's do it again. I hope everybody's doing great this Monday morning. Hope that your Monday is off to a great start, that your week is off to a great start. Keep on keeping on. Keep it up. Let's do this. Good week. Let's go. All right, everybody. Take care. Have a great rest of your day. Be back tomorrow. Bye-bye.